welcome. We're so happy to have all of you here. This is the sixth session, how to train NFL athletes for peak performance. And I think everybody knows that you're only as good as the people around you, right? So you're only as good of an athlete as the people that you have in your corner helping you to be the best athlete you can be. And we have an awesome panel for you here tonight. And I just want to introduce everyone. We have the Director of Athlete Performance for the Buccaneers. That would be Greg Skaggs. We have the Director of Performance Nutrition, Stephanie Kolloff O'Neill. Our Assistant Strength and Conditioning Coach at the Buccaneers, Maral Javadifar, also known as MJ to almost everyone around One Buc Place. And my name is Sara Walsh. I cover the Buccaneers and I work for the NFL Network and also the NFL on Fox. It's just awesome that the Buccaneers take the time to do this program to let everyone sort of explore what some of those options are and learn. And I know when I was coming up, I wish I had seminars like this where you could really deep dive into an organization and learn about it. So we're so happy to have you all here. And without further ado, I will let everyone, and we'll start with Greg, sort of explain what they do for the Buccaneers. And Greg, you can kick things off as the Director of Athlete Performance.
So what I do with the Buccaneers is a little unusual. Most there's a lot of organizations that have a director of performance, but in most cases that is somebody who has a background in sports science, and they're working with the strength and conditioning coach to create individualized programs for the athletes. Jason, the general manager, reached out to me, and he was interested in having somebody with a medical background, so I'm a physician, oversee the training room, as well as the other areas of health and wellness. So, my primary roles are to oversee the training room. That involves, making sure we've hired, all the best local doctors, overseeing the care that our athletes are getting from our athletic trainers, looking at and evaluating the performance of that room, and then helping that room coordinate with strength and conditioning, sports science, and nutrition, so we can optimize really the health, the availability, and the performance of our athletes.
Stephanie, you want to pick it up next as the Director of Performance Nutrition?
My day-to-day involves interacting with the players and ensuring at the end of the day that what they need from a fueling, hydration, and recovery standpoint through food is covered. And that entails a lot of unique different aspects. I get to work with a lot of different departments. So if there's a clinical need, maybe someone might be deficient in a vitamin or a mineral or having some kind of gastrointestinal issue, I'll get to team up with the athletic training room and our team physicians on that, with Coach MJ and our sports science team and the rest of the strength and conditioning coaches. We'll be working on more of a performance fueling aspect, getting the guys ready to get on and off the practice or game fields, as well as them looking at maintaining peak body composition for what their position might be and what that demand is on their body, as well as then working in a lot of roles with the business side of the facility as well. And so teaming up with team operations, we're covering home and away needs for the game. So all of the fueling that's happening at our hotels leading up to the stadium, stadium fueling, whether that's at our home RJS, or on the road, depending on what city we're in, what international country we might be in now, as well as then working with the food service, our culinary department. We've been able to make a lot of really great progress in there and focus that the most important thing that we can do is make sure that we're fueling them properly within our own facility for the meals that they're eating at One Buccaneer Place with us.
MJ, as the Assistant Strength and Conditioning Coach, what is life like for you on a day-to-day basis there?
Sarah, thanks for the intro. Happy to be here. Our number one goal is to optimize the player experience, and our day-to-day is different in each department, but collectively we come together to work on this athlete-centered model throughout our program, and Greg's the forefront of that, and everyone else under him. That's our number one incentive. As an assistant strength coach, I am here to tailor to our head strength coaches program, and our goal is to make this as individualized as possible in the weight room. I also have a background in physical therapy, which helps when players are transitioning from the training room to the weight room, where there's a seamless conversation happening between healthcare practitioners and our strength coaches, and we're all working together for that common goal of getting that player back on the field.
I want to talk about your background, MJ, because you had a Bachelor of Science degree in molecular biology from Pace University, where you played basketball, which, by the way, I read that and I'm like, okay, MJ's way smarter than me. Let's just start there. And then you earned your Doctor of Physical Therapy from New York Medical College. When did you know that this was the path you wanted to take with those degrees, that this was the right fit for you? What inspired you to take this path?
As a young girl in high school, and even before that, I knew I wanted to be around training. I was always around training. I would train with the football players at a local college nearby. And, I was the only girl there working with the guys, and that felt normal. I felt comfortable. I didn't know how I was going to get into strength and conditioning role, because it is hard to get into. In sports in general, the job opportunities are very slim, and when they come available, it's hard to, find your way into it. I knew I wanted to embed the two things together, performance and rehab. And at this point in my career, I see those two things as one entity. More performance and rehab and training goes in that realm. So I use my PT background to insert myself in different areas with strength and conditioning, because I knew that was my passion. I knew that was my goal, and I had to figure out a different way to get in, because it was pretty challenging to get into. Internships were hard to get into. And so the way I pursued that opportunity was, while I would be in different cities for physical therapy internships, I would reach out to strength coaches and, shadow them and observe them. Meanwhile, trying to learn all the PT stuff that I was struggling to learn all the while.
What you said is really so important to anybody trying to get into these fields that are hard to get into, and these jobs that anybody wants. And that's like juggling a couple of things, right? You're doing one thing, but how can I make these connections? Which is why a program like this is so great, because it allows you to make those connections. And I think something, Stephanie, you said really struck me as you were explaining your role. It felt like you hit on almost every aspect of the organization, right? I heard you even say accounting at one point, and marketing and nutrition and trainers. Can you just talk, Stephanie, just how collaborative it is of an effort when you work for an NFL team?
Our motto kind of has been one team, one cause, but the best way I can describe us is we are a wheel, right? And each spoke is a different department who is contributing to this momentum that we can create to move forward. And so if there's something that's really succeeding and propelling in nutrition, or the opposite, where something like shows a need for a player, that's going to have an impact in each department, right? So if we're doing all of the things that we should from a performance aspect, hopefully we'll see from a fueling standpoint, hopefully we'll see performance improve. That'll make some changes that'll happen in the weight room. We'll see that through sports science and the data they're collecting. We'll see that then transition to play on the field. We'll see hopefully people also progressing throughout training in the weight room, whether they're in the training room, whether they need to be kind of recovering from and advancing from an injury. And then all of that at the end of the day progresses to what we can be doing on the field. And one smoothie can make an impact for the whole team. It's really important to just kind of remember that at the end of the day, that no matter how busy we are and really what all of these different departments are asking of us at one time, it's all of us feeling that same thing for that greater cause.
I love that. I never really thought about one smoothie could make a big difference. So, you learn something every day. To your point about teams are judged, right? And if a team is doing well, that impacts the whole organization. And I know coaches and players will judge themselves on wins and losses. So, Greg, I ask you this: when you run your department, how do you evaluate your success?
Yeah, it is more complicated for us than wins and losses. We are several layers removed from the actual outcome of games. So, there's several layers of that evaluation. From the medical side, I alluded to, it's looking at what kind of care do the athletes get. So there's a lot of internal kind of medical auditing to make sure that we're doing the best we can for our athletes. And then on the performance side, similar thing, happens where we're, doing an audit of, what data are we collecting, and is that data being used in such a way to really cause is it actionable data such that we're helping reduce risk for our players in terms of injury. We're helping them make sure that not fatigued going into games so they can, perform at their best.
Stephanie, is there a particular player you can point to that maybe you worked with closely this past season to change their nutritional goals or to improve their nutritional goals, and what those results were?
So there's a player who got basically his name called up in our game in Indy. And he and I work regularly on building plates and focusing on in the dining room, building plates together at the buffet line, what is fueling him best to prepare for what's up ahead from the day, recovering from coming off the practice field, possibly. Same with on the road or night before games, we're looking at what at that night snack when we've gotten to a hotel at 8:30 at night, how is this food going to benefit him for the next day? We always focus on that game mindset for him as well of, he was a second string player, almost you could say, kind of that borderline with the third as well. And, an injury came up, a second injury occurred. And so his name got called that morning leading into the game to basically come in and have a huge impact on the game in Indy at the O-line. And so he was able to really and stay focused on his usual routine because we always focused that each Sunday he could get his name called. And when that happened, he really showed up. He had a great game. And, not every player can have that happen. And it's great to be able to have the ones that are really tuned in and want to take part in nutrition and really value that. And then have them be able to see that when they can go in and really make a great impact on a game.
MJ, how important is it in this field to be able to not only adapt, right? Because things get thrown at you that you don't expect. Injuries certainly get thrown at you. You might have a certain program. This happens and nobody wants that to happen. And now you've got to adapt your program. How critical is it for you to be able to adjust a game plan on a daily basis?
It happens constantly. That's norm in our field and in what we do and in the organization. Players are they're playing a contact sport that anything at any point is inevitable. And so, when we lift on Mondays, day after games, you don't know what's going to be coming into the weight room that morning. And you have to prepare for anything. And so you have a plan in mind, and you better have a plan B, C, D, and even E, all those in line with each other, because at any point it could change. And every one of us can look at it within ourselves where, person A, person B, and person C may all have a similar issue going on with their bodies, and we're going to treat it differently based on how they present. And so at the bottom line is, when you have a player or a person in front of you, you're not going to take this cookie cutter protocol or model or program that you have set in your, set on paper, because it's going to change, because it should change, because everyone's different and everyone should be treated accordingly.
I don't think it just applies to sports. It applies to everyday life, right? And sometimes the people that are the most successful are the ones that can change and adapt and really think outside the box. And when you think about thinking outside the box, Greg, you talked about like your position isn't the most usual, right? Like when you started to talk to the general manager of creating this position. And I think you can have one idea of I'm going to do this, but there's different needs, right, on different teams. Just talk about the scenario of where you were before you were in this position. People can create, we live in a world where sometimes that outside the box thinking, you can create a position for yourself and your value, right?
That's totally true. When I went to medical school and I finally decided I wanted to be a family physician because I liked kind of the whole scope of care. I like dealing with kids. I like dealing with elderly people. I like, doing a little bit of everything. And I like the continuity of care, getting to know people and see them back over time. I had no idea I'd end up working in the NFL. Like, that was never on the radar. But it became one of these things where I finished my residency and they had just started this new thing called the Sports Medicine Fellowship. It was brand new. They'd only been doing it a few years. So I was like, that sounds really interesting to me. I really like sports. I really like, the conditions that this program's all about. And so I went and did that. And then a year and a half later, I went into private practice, and I did that for 10 years. And I really enjoyed that. But then the University of Oregon approached me and asked me, hey, we would like it if you take care of all of our student athletes and be full-time in the training room and just take care of those 650 athletes in the University of Oregon. And it was a really unique opportunity. And so, I took a leap of faith and I took that job and shifted gears again. And so I ended up doing that for 15 years, and it evolved into building a performance center, hiring sports science. None of that existed at the university. Overseeing the training room, a staff of 9 athletic trainers and nutritionists and psychologists. And so my career evolved there. And then it began in a conversation in the NBA about, maybe general managers, it would make sense for them to get some medical expertise to oversee the medical care that these athletes are getting. And it just evolved into this. So I feel obviously very fortunate.
I want to go back to what MJ said in the very beginning. These jobs are hard to get, right? The sports field I work in, media, those jobs are hard to get, and it's separating yourself just that little bit. And so I think being a woman, we also know that it's the margin of error is even much smaller in that space, right? And so Stephanie and MJ, I would love for you to speak to this, the mental aspect, right? Because your jobs are to help people physically be prepared to play and physically do their job, but mentally getting to where you've gotten. What advice would you give to people on the mental side of things? And MJ, we can start with you because you were talking about how hard it was to get these jobs.
I think the biggest thing for me was to surround myself with people who were supportive, whether and they were coming from all different backgrounds. So even when I was maybe not feeling confident about an opportunity, I had supporters and people behind me reminding me that, I can do this, and this is what I needed to do because of X, Y, and Z. And again, the bottom line, surround yourself with people that are there to build you up, but also be honest with you and give you the truth, but also teach you how to improve on areas that you might be deficient in.
Stephanie, how about you?
Having a really great mentor who can advise you if those kind of concerns of, am I doing the right thing? And then same too with that support system, make sure you have that social system that supports you and understands your goals and the reason for why you want to do it, and also then values that in you. And then also, we are females in this field, and that's a great thing because we do get that ability to kind of maybe empathize a little bit better, maybe support a little bit better, and help players know that you're there to support specifically them. And I felt like that's a great way to be able to really build rapport and bond with the players and create that kind of personalized an individualized relationship with them, to be able to really support their care and letting them know that you're looking out for them, and that's part of your job.
That's a great point, because it also gives you a different perspective, right? Different perspectives make people better. Greg, how have you seen, being around Stephanie, being around MJ, how has that helped your perspective of what they see on a day-to-day basis?
What you're saying is how you build a strong staff. I think you need people from different backgrounds. And then collectively, you'll be so much stronger. I was really fortunate to have MJ be part of our staff when I got there, because it's awesome having somebody who is a physical therapist who's in the weight room. It helps, every single day, let alone it's extra special when we've got people coming out of, an injury, knowing that, they've got somebody, who's super qualified to do the modifications that the athlete needs. I was fortunate enough to hire Stephanie. We ended up, when I took this job, the nutrition position was empty. And so we, did a search, interviewed a lot of good people from across the country, and, she shined. So yeah, I've been super, lucky to get the staff that we have right now. And, but it's a process, every day we can get better.
MJ, from where you were on a basketball court back in the day to where you are now, what's the best piece of advice somebody has ever given you to get you where you are?
From my mom. It was on my way back to Tampa. And she said, do your best, but don't take it from anybody.
I love it. I love it. I know, listen, I can ask questions for the rest of the night because I find it so interesting, all the inner workings of every organization. But I know you guys probably all have questions for our panelists. So I know we're going to get into breakout rooms. So I will close this portion of the program and just say, as someone who's worked with a lot of NFL organizations, I just truly appreciate the Buccaneers, what they're doing, what Darcy Glazer-Kasowitz is doing, what Bruce Arians is doing, and sort of being on the very progressive side of this thing. And when it comes to equality and diversity, and when you look at the staff that works there. So I'm so happy to be a part of it. If anyone that's on this ever has any questions for me, feel free to reach out, because I think, it's always important to help others in this industry. So with that, I will sign off and say thank you, everyone, for having me. I got smarter today. Listen to your moms, and you guys can all head to your breakout rooms.
Hi, I'm Sydney Bryant, and I'm currently interning at NFL Films while I finish my master's in sports and recreation studies at George Mason. My first question is, obviously each player is different in the way that they're motivated and also the goals that they're trying to achieve. So I was just wondering if there are any specific skills or kind of sets of skills that you've learned that seem to really work best on, one, figuring out how to best motivate and work with each individual based off kind of their personality and goals, and then also like how to continue building that relationship with them.
You're working with people, right? And it doesn't matter if they're an NFL athlete or someone down the street. When you have an individual in front of you, asking them the right questions in order to get a better idea of who that person is so that you could better serve them. At this level, motivation isn't really, they don't need a cheerleader to be next to them saying, hey, let's do this, or screaming in their face. It's more about respect and learning who that person is at the end of the day. But the way you continue to develop that relationship is by continuing to ask them questions and letting them know you're a real person too.
Hi, my name is Lachelle Stanley. I'm the director of on-campus recruiting at the University of Kansas. I'm curious to kind of know your experience with guys buying in on the collegiate level versus on the NFL level, and what we can do, I guess, those of us working on a collegiate level that can help them get that buy-in before they get to the next level of their career.
The things that I think are helpful to think about is how much effort, how much time is this for the athlete? You don't want to be collecting things that are not going to be really valuable. So, too frequently I would see coaches interested in doing things that were collecting bits of data that took too much time. So, you have to pick and choose your interventions carefully, and then spend the appropriate amount of time educating the athlete. It always goes back to the selling point is always making it about them. It's not about the team. It's not about wins and losses. It's about them. And so, it's about their health. It's about their performance. And that's how you get that buy-in.
My name is Corianne McNeil. I am currently a nutrition graduate student and patiently waiting for April 3rd for dietetic internship match day. What makes registered dietitians stand out to teams at this level whenever they're trying to become part of the performance staff?
It's really important to recognize that registered dietitians are really set apart in the field of nutrition. We are the only credentialed and truly educated and board certified. And so we go through a designated undergraduate degree program that has to be certified throughout the years to be able to receive that education to apply for a dietetic internship, which is highly competitive. Less than 50% of the people can make it in each year to the number of internships that exist across the country, with even some international externships that can be done with that as well. From that point, if you can make it into your dietetic internship, that's usually 8 months. Sometimes you can find a program that's 6, but it's full-time focus and supervision, practice work related to various internship sites, and getting different experiences within clinical nutrition, food service, different community rotations, working with things like with women, infants, and children, looking at different hospital food service systems, school food service systems, adult care programs, and then us here in the performance realm can hopefully land some performance nutrition focused rotations, whether that's at a training facility, sometimes a university, sometimes even a professional training facility. From that point, we have to go through a board certified exam to become a registered dietitian. And then myself as a certified specialist in sports dietetics. I have an additional exam. I actually just recertified and passed that a couple weeks ago. So super exciting. But that requires an additional set amount of practice and hours that we have to log and record to be able to sit for the exam, as well as then, of course, passing that credential. And so it really does show us as the experts related to nutrition. And then second to that, within the NFL, we as full-time sports dietitians are also pushing to help ensure that each NFL team can achieve having a full-time registered dietitian on their staff. There are a few teams left who still have a consultant. And so we're hoping to continue to support our players, show our coaching staff the value of our position of having a person in the facility on a day-to-day basis, as well as different ownership groups to help really bring those people in a full-time capacity and achieve that across the league with all 32 teams.
Hello, MJ. Good to see you again. I'm Mauricio with the Dallas Cowboys production coordinator. Was there an NFL level specific skill that you recognize you could improve upon?
For me, when I first got here, my mindset was more set on practitioner, and it wasn't looking at the broader scope of things as a team. And so for me, it was taking a step back and looking at the bigger picture in order to, and also still being able to fine tune and looking at the micro view as well. So looking at the macro and the micro view, I think was critical. And, if I saw something, I wanted to address that little thing, but I needed to take a step back and look at what was the priority. And for me, that was something that was challenging early on, but you realize things that end up being challenging, you better figure out how to fix them pretty quickly.
My name is Michaela Kordemosh. I am the Director of Football Operations at Monte Vista High School. The question I have for you is, what are your steps in developing the best practice policies for each of your players?
I take that question to mean, like, how do we approach individualizing our program for each athlete? Because to me, that's really where the value is. Mm-hmm. So when an athlete comes in, understanding who they are, what position do they play, how old are they, how they play the game at their position, what's their previous medical injuries. So really profiling the athlete in terms of just demographics, and then, doing an assessment of them. So how do they move? Where are their movement limitations? What are their strengths and weaknesses? Are they strong? Are they fast? How do they accelerate? How do they generate power? Why is it, how are they compared to their peers at their position? What's their body comp? And then trying to get with my staff to figure out, okay, here is this athlete that we have. How are we going to develop a individualized program of training, and what things are we going to monitor while they're during this training program? What pieces of information do we feel like are important for them in terms of monitoring their progress?
My name is Ariel Escobar. I'm the Director of Football Operations at Tennessee State and on-campus recruitment. What are some of the advancements you'd like to see in nutrition and then generally across the league over the next few years?
Everything to do with fueling on the road. You can see really the benefit of a dietitian advancing on the road, supporting the advanced operations team members that go. There are so many jobs that have to get done from the operations side that, time within the dining room can't always be had. Time with the chefs and the people who are cooking the food isn't always had. And I would really love to see the ability to, travel your own chef on the road, travel your own culinary department. You can't take a chance on that fuel. It's vital to how they're going to perform on the field. And so if we can get those two aligned, that would be great.